Wednesday, it's Mansfield today, and that means it's time for our medical slot. And with the details, once again, our resident GP, Dr. Vicky. Hello, Dr. Vicky Skitter.
Hello, Jeremy. How are you? Goed, dankie.
Yeah. Why are you looking so strict today?
I'm still in shock.
Why?
I went to Goldreach City yesterday and I had 2 near-death
experiences.
I'm still in shock.
You know what, you're a doctor, you can organize your own pillies.
Eish, I should have taken some before.
We're talking speech therapy and audiology today. And we're joined by
Taryn
Botha. Hello, Taryn, how are you?
Hello, Jeremy. I'm fine, thanks, and you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for taking time out to join us on Mansfield today. First question to you, does speech therapy, does it entail speech only, or are there other focus areas to it as well?
So speech therapy has everything to do with communication and swallowing. So it's the assessment and treatment of communication and swallowing disorders, and that's from infants, children, all the way to the elderly.
Okay.
Okay, you know what I always find interesting is the spectrum of adults, like the adult range. What kind of ailments do you treat in adults?
So most commonly the neurological disorders, anything like a stroke or a brain injury, and then of course stuttering, voice disorders, feeding disorders.
You've mentioned common childhood problems. You alluded to common childhood problems. What are the common ones that you often see and treat, Tara?
I think most commonly I see language and auditory processing disorders, and then you get the kids who can't say a certain sound, so those are articulation disorders, stuttering, feeding disorders, difficulties with pragmatics and social communication. Those are probably the most common.
Okay.
Okay, so what does pragmatics and social skills mean exactly?
So that's anything to do with social language. So it's the appropriate use of language in social contexts. So, for example, children on the autistic spectrum, they're going to have difficulties with the social side of language. So using language correctly in social situations.
You see, you should have gone to a speech therapist when you were young.
It's not too late. So, Taryn, if you're a parent of a toddler, give us some pointers. You know, often you hear parents like, my child can say so many words. How do you gauge whether they need speech therapy?
So my general rule of thumb is 1 word at age 1 or 2 words at age 2 and so on. But I think always a mom knows best. So if your child is only using a few words, and they're a toddler, or if they're not easily understood by you or family members, if they're not joining words together to make sentences, or at least attempting to make sentences, or if they're not playing well with other kids, I think you should definitely consult a speech therapist at that point. And even if it's just like a casual chat or an assessment, it's definitely better just to, get the right feel for where your kid is at.
What sort of areas of the body do you deal with? And I ask this because I did speech as my major in speech and drama when I was studying years ago, before the Middle Ages started. And in that, we were taught about the various aspects of speech itself, everything from your nasal cavities right the way down to your diaphragm, and how they're all interlinked and how you use them to create sound. Do you incorporate all of those elements? Diaphragm, lungs, larynx, pharynx, nasal cavities, the whole thing?
Definitely. If you don't have good breath control, you're not going to have enough breath or lung capacity to be able to say sentences. So especially in our children with cerebral palsy, with weak core, they tend to be slouched quite a bit and then don't have the correct lung capacity or enough lung capacity to say sentences. So it's definitely to do with working together with OT and physio to get better core strength and then in turn better lung capacity for speech. And then obviously the ears also play a part in speech. So if you can't hear, then you're not going to learn to speak. So they're definitely all connected. And then swallowing obviously is the last one, and that's the whole kind of track all the way down to the stomach. So that involves lip closure, tongue, and then all the muscles down the neck.
Okay, you see, I set this one up perfectly. Absolutely perfect.
So how do you teach someone to swallow?
No. Jene, maar jy's vuil. Yesterday, Vicky. I can't believe that you just said that. No. How do you stop hiccups?
Hiccups. My goodness, that's the first time I've ever been asked that. As a professional, I have no idea. As a mother, I tell my children to drink some water.
Any last questions that you've got for
I wanted
Taryn?
to just check, do you have different specialities in speech therapy?
Not specialities as such, but I think people do have different interests. People tend to refer to either work with adults or with children, and then in that you get people who have more interests in like the neurology of adults or voice disorders or feeding disorders, and then within children with feeding or language or articulation. So there's many different areas that people have a special interest in.
How would you go about finding the right speech therapist for a specific problem then?
Definitely, I'd say to start with Google. So lots of therapists have recommended or suggested their practices on Google. So you could always start there. And then I would recommend just phoning the speech therapist to ask, is it something that they have an interest in, or do they treat that disorder? Lots of the speech therapists have social media pages that you could look at, and they post lots of information, and you can kind of tell from there what their interests are. And then the special needs schools, most of them have speech therapists at their schools. So you could pop by there or send an email and ask for a therapist who maybe has an interest in the area that you're looking for.
Taryn, thank you very much for the brief chat. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
Taryn Botha is a dual qualified speech therapist and audiologist right here on Mansfield today. I still can't believe you asked that question.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I'm shocked by you. Yeah, I don't even know if
Sorry.
I don't know if we should invite you back next week.
Oh.
Dr. Vicky Skitter, as lovely and as naughty as ever. And that's it from us for this week. We'll catch you tomorrow with The Travel Show right here on Mansfield Today.